recording. Hopefully everything works out. Okay, so happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another Revit session. Today we're going to talk about Revit Advanced Family. Today lesson topic, I'm going to talk about how you use nested family to swap out with different family, how to use share family, how to add rotation. Let's assume that you want to rotate a certain degree, let's say in Z elevation. How do you do that? Add rotation to existing family. How do you apply nested family to curtain wall? And then create more adaptive patterns. Last time I showed you can create adaptive components, but there's other stuff you can actually add it in. And then finally, if we have time, we'll just get into the user adaptive repeaters. All right, demo time. I'm assuming that you guys are really well versed with Revit Family Building. Today, it's going to be a little bit very fast track. All right, just trying to follow along. If you can't, that's okay. We can always do this like one-on-one kind of create this a different tutorial. All right, so I'm just going to start a Revit generic family. Okay. Now, in this particular template, right? Sometimes what you see is that you got this feature right here. You got shared, work plane based. Okay, I'm going to focusing on this first. Later on, I'm going to talk about what shared does. So, okay, let's assume that you put in a work plane base. What this does is that when you click this on, and if you insert in any family, or let's say you want to build any family, let's say I'm going to build in a box. So I'm just going to open up a new project. Okay, let's assume that it's an architectural. So what this does is that if you have let's say you're going to create a slope and call the slope. Let's go to a 3D version and set to slope. So now what ended up happening is that I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to say load it in. Now what you could say is that you could place it on face or place it on work plane. And here, you're going to say put it on slope. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that if you have to do this, you have to go back. You have to turn this off always vertical. Right now, what happens is that it's placing on a slope surface. However, it's always going to put it at always vertical because by default, it's always set to vertical. But when I load it in, notice that right now, it starts to slope with that. So now what you could do is that you can actually rotate this object. It will just go anywhere. So sometimes what ends up happening in some of the projects you see that lights are off to this angle because of that particular setup. Now, if you want to make this thing kind of rotate with it, I'm just going to show you how I would add in a rotation inside the family so that this thing is always going to be set to level 1, but you can automatically rotate that. How do you do that? So one thing you have to do is that you go into the family, you just open up a new template. Let's use the generic model. I'm just going to close all of it so I only get this. Okay, right now you have this family. Let's put it in the center. Okay, it's much easier if you put it in the center line rather than off the side. So let's say I'm going to do that and load it into my family number 2. Right now, you're just going to hit escape, just don't do anything. Go to one of the front elevation. And what you're going to do is that you're going to add in like a parameter in here. So here, I'm just going to add in my rotation. So here, I'm just going to go here. Give me a angle. I'm just going to call this angle. I'm just going to put in as an instance parameter. Now here, I'm just going to put angle. And let's go to 3D, set to angle, make it show so you know that it's sloped. Now, next thing you're going to do is that you're going to place on work plane. So here, what you may have to do is that take this and move it to the center point. Okay? It doesn't matter where it is. Now what you can do is let's go to 0. Okay, good. Let's test it out. Let's say 90 degree. Oh yeah, sometimes what it does is that it has a limit. 9. Oh, it doesn't like to do it. Okay, so let's say 75. Yeah, there is a issue with this. Once you hit to 0 or 90, Revit will reset itself. So when you remove this, let's try it again. Okay, if you do run into this problem, okay, let's say work plane based, okay, everything works. But the problem is that it has a limitation. So how do you prevent that from happening? Let me show you one way to do it. I'm just going to kill this, that. So one of the things you want to do is that you want to create a family called the Revolve. Okay, I'm going to create a Revolve. I'm going to put an axis here. In here, what you're going to do is that you're going to create a plane, basically. So let's assume that, oops, I want to do a boundary line. Oops, let's say I want to do a piece of surface. Okay, that's what I want. Do I do it correctly? Nope. Let me double check if I did it correctly. Okay, it's rotating correctly. Okay, so here, oh, you know what? I think I did it incorrectly. I set my work plane. That's why it was confusing. So it's always going to be, yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to do it again. So what you're going to do is that first, make sure it's level plane. You do a revolve, add an axis. And next thing you want to do is that you're just going to draw in just a small piece of surface. It doesn't have to be like really wide. It could be like really, really tiny. Now, in here, what you're going to have is that you see that here, it has the start angle and end angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change it to 5. Okay. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to say start angle and end angle. So here I'm just going to get rid of oops. What the heck is going on? Okay. And angle. Okay. So right now what you have is that you have a very small piece. This one I'm going to get rid of it because it was not useful. So what it does is that it tells me there's a start and there's an end. So in here, if you ever change this angle, this should also rotate with it. So here what I'm going to do is that start angle plus 1. Okay. So what this does, or you can say 5 degree. If let's say this is 15, this thing will automatically rotate with it. So what it does is that it's technically doing a rotate. So if I'm changing 12, this thing will always count to that. So the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to put that object, let's say component, place it on face. So I'm going to put it on that face. So now what we can do is that I'm going to say this is going to be 90 degree. There we go. And this is going to be 180. So you could do like a rotation going, let's say, 3,000 degree. Yeah, you notice that you could put any number in it. So this one you could kind of keep going forever and ever. So this is why I like this type of methodology, is that you just take a surface and you do that. And what you could do in here is that you can just say, don't make it invisible. Show reference. Okay. And then now what you can do is that when you load it into your project, okay, you can say, just make it start from level, component. And now what you can do is that this one, I just go edit and say, and there we go. So that's how you do rotation, right? So those are 2 types of rotation you can use. Okay, one is by plane. one thing about plane you have to keep realizing is that once you hit 0 or 90 or 180, like the perfect one, the formula doesn't work. So if that doesn't work, you have to use the Revolve methodology. So this applies for like if you want to make your door opens, okay, swing back and forth. This is the methodology that I use. I'm just showing you the simplest way, right? Hopefully everybody kind of understand how this works, okay? Because later on in the future, we're going to do a lot more complicated stuff with this. You can make the whole Revit kind of like rotate here, rotate that. So you're getting into more of a machinery kind of a joint. So I'm probably not going too deep into it. I'm just going to show you that this is how you do rotation inside Revit if you have a surface and apply to it, and it would just automatically rotate. Okay, so all right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is how to use nested family and swap it out with different family. Now, typically what you do, I should open up a sample project. Okay. Typically how you do this is that you would do it in like with a door. A perfect example would be a door. So here I'm just going to use this particular example. So what you do with a door is that sometimes you want to get like a solid panel, you want to go glass, you know. So this is how I would approach when you build a door. So here, let's assume you have a door. This is a door. Go in there. Okay, I'm just going to remove it. So what you have in here is that you have a door panel. Okay, now this door panel, you can actually swap it out with another panel. So I'm gonna borrow this method. I'm just gonna create a new door just to show you how I would approach this. So let's say I'm gonna do a door, and in here you already have a preset. Everything is already set. Now what you want to do is that you want to put in this door panel. Okay, I've created this door panel. Let's see. Model. Oops, sorry. Family. Create model. You notice that there is like 4 different types. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create a flush. Okay, just edit that. And I'm just going to load it into family number 3. Okay, you should see there's the panel. And I'm going to do the same thing. Oops, close this out. And I want to do the one with the glass frame. Let's do that. Edit. Let's assume this is what you want. Go in there, do family 3. All right, you've got 2 different types of family. Okay, it does its own thing. So what you're going to do is that you want to place it in this door. Okay, so what you're going to do is that first you figure out what's the height and what's the width. Okay, now how you built this, you go into the flush, is you just use an extrusion. Okay, it's pretty simple stuff. What you have to do is that you just have to give it height, thickness, and the width. The width, I would recommend use the instance parameter as well as the height. Oh, height, actually, I put it as a, you could put it instance parameter if you want, but most of the time I just use instance parameter. The reason why is that you want to make it as flexible as possible. So now what you're going to do here is that you're going to just basically say, okay, my width, I'm just going to say the same as that width. And then for the height, just use the height. Okay, well, thickness, again, you want the thickness, make it the same as your door thickness. And you do the same thing for this one as well. So you go in here, make it width, edit the type, thickness, again, the same thing, thickness, and height. Let's go to height. So now what you're going to do is that you're going to place one of this family into this position. You don't care about the other family, and because what happened is that all you need is just one family, and then it will just swap things out. So here I'm just going to go and lock this down, and then I'm going to use the reference and lock it down. So now what you have is that you have a door panel that's flush. The one family you're going to do is that you're going to select this family, and you notice that there is one called here. a parameter. You can say this is a door panel type. Okay, that's all you have to do. Now, I'm just going to load this into your project 1. Okay, first I'm going to put in a wall. Let's add in a door, family 3. Okay, so now you have a flush. Now when I duplicate this and call this glass, now what you have is that you have this generic panel type. You notice that there is one called a glass frame. When you hit OK, you notice that if you swap it out with another type. So what you can do is that you can kind of build on this, right? So let's assume that you have a panel, you want to modify it. And let's assume that I'm going to call this a different one. I'm going to save as. Just go peak hole, or let's assume that this is custom. Okay. Make sure that all your family, it's basically the same setup and everything. All you do is just take a flushing, and you go in there and just modify whatever you want. So here I'm just going to go in extrusion, and let's see, I'm going to add. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And what you have to do is that just load it into your row. Well, actually, no, you don't want to do that first. First, you want to do it inside the family 3. Okay. Reason why you want to load it in family 3 is you have to make sure that this custom it's attached to, you know, the width, the thickness, and the height. Okay, those are the only thing. The reason why I recommend user just load it into this family first. Once you have it in there, then you can just load it into your family project, and say override. And what this does is that you can say, you know, peak hole. Now you can just swap it out with custom. There we go. So that's how you swap family with another family very quickly. This means that you can actually do the same thing if you want to change kitchen cabinets and such, etc. But the only issue I don't like about this is that this will increase your file size. So if you are having to do multiple panel types, your door type could reach about 1 megabyte. So assume that this door, it's going to be used like multiple floors, then you're going to run into problems. So pick and choose your battle. I'd like to use this just for like starting up if you're doing design kind of a thing. This is a perfect legitimate way to do it. You have one door that solves basically everything rather than having 2 different types. As well as it's a little bit more control. You can have like everything is just one family, and you can have like different types rather than having another type for this, another type for that, and you run into that problems. So those are basically how you swap things out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the shared, how to use it. Share family, how to use it. In this case, let's go back to my sample project. I'm just going to close out all this unnecessary stuff. Okay. So for the share, I'm just going to go into, let's say, level 2. You will run into issue with, you notice that when you're building out a building, residential building especially, most often I've seen in other projects is that user customize all this stuff, and then you have inconsistency. So what this does is that you can actually build a family that can complement each of those. You notice that here, I'm just going to make a copy. No, this is too far away. Let's see, put it here. Notice that when I select it, this is just called bathroom layout, but if I go into it, you'll notice that it's called plumbing, you know, this, and then when I click on that, that's toilet floor mount, and you click on that, that's laboratory. Now, that is basically called shared. So what you could do is that each of those individual objects can be tagged. So let's assume that this one, you notice that you can tag each individual objects, or you can just tag the whole thing as well. So how do you build this? So I'm just going to use one of them, very simple framework. Okay, I probably will not use, well, maybe I should use this or not. I'll just double check. Now, just for my new one, I just want to make you guys aware that you can actually build this. So what you're going to do is first, you will create a family. I would choose a casework, but I would just start off from generic, and then you can always change it into different types of family. So use generic, then change it to casework. The reason why I like to do that is because casework, you can actually tag this as a casework, since this is a millwork actually. So, all right. So the first thing you do is that I'm going to use the generic 5x8. So you can go in here, change it to imperial. Just make this as big as you can. So the first thing you do is that you just create a framework. Oops. So this one I would just go 5, and this one I would just go 8. Oop, that's too much. 8. So 5x8 is your kind of like your standard washroom kind of a layout. So that's a width, well, actually length. And this one is width. Let's put an instance parameter. Oh, okay. Let's see. Width. There we go. Now make sure they're instance parameter. The reason why I like to do that is because you want to stretch it. So the next step you want to do is that you want to add in your toilet, all your bathroom accessories. So what you're going to do is that you're going to take one from, let's say, any family. So let's assume that you have one. Let's see, model. Let's say plumbing. Let's assume that you have a family that you want to kind of put in, and you want to make it look sexy. So what you typically do is that you just pick and choose what you want to put in. So in this case, I'm just open up a garage family. So let's assume that, okay, what looks good? So I'm going to take that. You can just copy. Oh, that looks good. So I'm just going to copy that. Well, actually, you cannot copy and paste, unfortunately. So you kind of have to edit the family and load it in. That's the stupid thing about Revit, is that you cannot take family and copy and pasting in. I wish you can do that, but unfortunately, it's not like AutoCAD where you can do that immediately. Now, one thing I forgot to do is that I forgot to turn it to shared. So in here, you kind of have to click on shared. Now, keep in mind, is it a good idea to have everything shared in the nested family? I would just recommend say no, okay? Because shared, once you put it in, which means that this family is independent, right? But when you put it into a family itself, it's just like a hosting family. If you create a different type, yeah, this is where you're going to get into more issues. Okay, so just be aware. Shared sometimes can lead to other stuff, but for now, I'm not going to discuss too much. I'm just going to go into making a share family and override it. Okay, now if you want to make your toilet, or no, the tub, the same width, okay, then what you can do is that you can say length, just make it width, okay? Because if, let's say if I change this to 6 feet, you notice that it will change along with that. If you do not want that, then I recommend just don't put it in. And what you do here is that you basically say add your own tub width. But if you want to do it, then yeah, just do it. But if you're not, if you have a specific size that your client want a certain size, then you just go tub width. Okay. Same thing with your length and width of your tub. So here we got a special one, and I'm just going to call tub depth. Okay. Right now, you're basically constraining it. Okay, you're constraining to the size you want. You can manipulate this. Okay, you can manipulate both of those values. Now in shared, I recommend that if you want to make your thing more customized, I recommend that all your tubs and let's say your parameter here to be instance parameter. Okay, the minute you set to type parameter and load it into your family, okay, once you set it and put it into the family 4, which means that you can no longer change your width and size. It's already preset. Okay, just be aware of that because I've seen people put that as a type and then they say that, oh, how come I can't do this? How come I can manipulate this? It's because type parameter, it's basically taking it off from this family itself. Whatever you set in your type parameter, like this, all this information, let's say width and depth, it's going to take it from there. But here, always keep it instance parameter so you have this flexibility. So here, I'm just going to go align. And I like to align it to the end so that if this thing is set to 6 feet, you notice that you can add an extra wall and that basically become kind of like your shower. Okay, I always like to do that. You could do it the other way where this extension goes beyond that. I'll leave it up to you, but it's based on construction. If you want to do, like, let's say this one's going to come in like this, then yeah, definitely do that. The next thing you want to do is that you want to align yourself with your tub width. Okay, so this is kind of like your reference point now. 6. Here, you're going to say tub depth with 6. So whenever this change, whenever this family change, this will automatically change with that. And here, I'm just going to add in my other parameters. Let's say this is my toilet clearance. Okay, and when you do the toilet clearance, I like to put in center point. Okay, just edit and put in a center point. And sometimes you also want to do an offset. So here, you want to add in offset point. So let's say this is, oh, that's too much. Let's see, 2 inches. Give it a descriptive things because sometimes people get too lazy describing stuff. So here I'm just going to say toilet offset from wall. Okay, you always must have a gap. Okay, unless it is unless it's one of these. Just close out of this. Yeah, I'm just going to close out of this because it's distracting. Yeah, close out. Like the unfortunate thing about the Revit tabs is that it's not going to give you what's what. So here, unless you use this kind of a tub where it's mounted to a wall, for this one, residential, yeah, typically you're going to end up with this type of configuration. So I would just have an offset. And when I load it in, family 4, again, I was just going to place it on workplace. What dimension, go in there, make sure you set it to shared. Okay, load it in. So now you have that. All you have to do is just lock it. Okay, always remember to lock it and lock it down there. So if let's say my toilet I want it to be 2 foot 3, and you notice that it will follow with that. If I change this to 5, I won't change too much. Next thing you want to do is that you want to add in this millwork. Okay, now this millwork, again, you can actually make it, let's see, 2 foot. And then if you want to put in your, that looks pretty good. Yeah, you kind of have to pick and choose because sometimes what ends up happening is that this toilet is hosting to something, a wall. See if it's, yeah, it's hosting to a wall. So this is what this is kind of like the limitations of some of this Revit families. That if it's hosted on this type of family, you're basically at their mercy actually. So a lot of time I would tell users that if you built something, don't put it like into a host to a wall, because you can't, it's not flexible. So in order for this to work, is that first you built all of this non-hosted. Later on, if you want this thing to host to a wall, then you load that family. So it's going to be a nested family, and then you can host it to that. So this one, yeah, it's kind of like, no, we can't use it. So what we're going to do is that we're just going to grab whatever is available. So sure, let's do this one. What is this hosted to? Okay. Now what you can do is that we're just going to put in a family 4. Now, for this casework, you can actually build your own. I typically just do a generic one. If you don't want to get too detailed, then just build a generic. Oh, I should do left so you can see it. And here you can just say the height. Oh, okay. So since this is lavatory, I'm just going to use the height. Oops. Now you notice that there is one level, and then there's another one. It's a reference plane. Which one would you use normally? I usually, if I want to dimension to, I usually dimension it to this reference plane. Later on, I'll discuss, this has become critical if you're doing it with curtain panels, because if you do it a reference to a level, what ends up happening is that when you want to stretch certain things, Revit will break your family, okay, telling you that nested family cannot do this, blah, blah, blah. So I recommend that you always reference to this reference plane. Now, if this reference plane ever move, you can always reference it to this and then lock it. Okay, just as an example, if you can't find a reference plane in here, then just draw one, select this to that reference plane and make it 0, and then just lock it. So this one I'm just going to say is for height. So the purpose of this is kind of like help you illustrate that you can actually build this yourself. This is not like really hard things to do, but it's just that you kind of have to understand kind of like the logic behind a lot of this. So here, again, you're going to go in here, make it shared. Yeah, that's what I did. So I'm going to get out of here. And next thing you do is that you want to, again, keep it at center point. Here, you can actually make it center point if you want. But yeah, just to simplicity's sake, I'm just going to make it center. But again, you can also do what I did with the toilet offset, is that you can actually add one for this. For now, I'm just going to keep it center and just lock it down. Now, if let's say this thing changed, like how do you make this thing so that it actually changes height? You notice that here, this is a type parameter, right? You see that I cannot change this. So this is something to keep in mind. Right now, you notice that there is no button. This is manually overwritten. So this is why I recommend, if you have to make this thing flexible with that, you go to edit, go to front, and just say this one, just make it instance parameter. Just load it back in to family 4. Okay, so now what you can do is that you can just select that and just say casework height. So if the casework height is 2'6", you notice that it follows with that. So that's kind of like the simple logic. Now what you want to do is that if you want to add in tiles, I just recommend just draw a piece of tile for that flooring. Now I'll just use the left. So here I'm just going to say tile thickness. You can go like super detail on this, but this one I just want to illustrate that you can build this very quickly for your project. Let's assume that this is 1/8, and I'm just going to say tile thickness. Lock it down. Okay, and now what you can do is that this one I'm just going to say tile material. and you want to create basically give it a tile finished. So I just use default and just say tile material. Just pick and choose one of the materials. You guys kind of know how to do this. So it falls under ceramic. Okay, let's see what's a good ceramic tile. Sure, I'm just going to use this as a representation. Okay, mosaic, but for your foreground, you want to use model and say this is 6 by 6. Basic cross 0 6 by 6. And say okay. Okay, there we go. There's just simple kind of a tile. And lastly, you have to do, always add this control. Okay. And once you're done, let's go back and fix this. Let's say 5. Okay, looks good. Let's load it into your project. Let's go to level 1. Now what you can do is that you can stretch it. Perfect. Now, if you want this tub to kind of match that, then you go in here. Now, you don't have to delete this and just make it into this. You can actually say equals width. But the only thing you have to do is that you have to first change this to instance parameter. So both of them has to be instance parameter. Then now you can say, okay, follow the width. And when you load it back in, there we go. So you can stretch this. This saves me a lot of time, especially if you're doing a lot of, you want to make things standardized stuff. So any questions so far with this? Okay, no question. Okay, good. So hopefully this is clear for everybody how to build stuff. You can do it for kitchen. Kitchen's a little bit more complicated, so this is why I don't usually do kitchen with this type of layout. Unless you know that there's a certain kitchen that you want to do, then yes, we can definitely do it. For bathrooms, this is how I would approach it. All right, let's go back and see. Okay, I did that. How to apply nested family to curtain wall. Yeah, this is very important. I like, because what ended up happening is that a lot of people is going to be doing a lot of curtain walls, and I just want to show them how things are done. Let's assume you have a curtain wall. Let's see, where's my curtain wall family? Oh, top. All right, so curtain wall, what ended up happening is that all of this is your constraints. So sometimes what you're going to have is that you're going to have a family. Oh, let's load in that panel before, the door panel. I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's go to project 1. You have this. And I want to use this family here. Okay. So what you're going to do is that you're going to go edit that. Just load it into your project number, family number 5. All right. Now, since this one doesn't have any any dimensions, how would you do this? How do you see that there's no dimension? So the first thing you want to do is that you want to create dimensions, and the one thing you want to do here is that you want to call this report height. Okay, this is a reporting parameter. Now what you're going to do the same thing is you're going to do the same thing here. This is instance report width. I always put in report. The reason why is that this one you're going to use it, and then you're going to inform this guy to report both of those information. So here, once you have that, I forgot to mention, once I go into here, change it all to instance. So let's say height, make it instance. Okay. Go in here, override. So now what you have is that you see that there's width, report width, report height. Okay. Let's assume that you want to make a door out of this. Okay, the first thing you want to do is that change this to door. Okay. Next, you want to do is that you want to add an offset. So what I typically like to do with curtain wall is that I like to do this both offset in and offset out. Okay, so offset. I'll just go 600 and say this is 950. The reason why is that curtain wall, when you actually dealt with curtain wall, is that it's always at the middle of the line. So whenever you draw a curtain wall, it's always at the center line. Sometimes you want to have that flexibility where you can offset in or offset out. So this is kind of like how I would build it. Let's just say this is offset exterior and offset interior. So what you can do is that you just align here, align to there. And then the next thing you want to do is that you want to add a frame. So the frame, I'm just going to assume that this is going to be a depth. Okay, so here I'm just going to say 4 inches. Frame depth. Okay, so I'm going to hide this for now. And here I'm just going to say this is 2 inches. 2 inches. 2 inches. So here, what I'm going to do is that, again, it's just this, this, and this. So here, I'm just going to go select that and say this is going to be my frame thickness. Okay. I'm going to go in here, just draw my outline. Make sure you close it out. This is going to give you an error. Okay, so now what you have is that first you're going to hide that. And I'm just going to hide it and just lock it. All right, so you create a frame, but the problem is that this thing is actually reaches outside of the frame. So now the next thing you are going to do is that you're going to unlock this and say this one is going to be panel width. Make sure it's an instance parameter. Again, this is going to be panel height, instance parameter. And what you're going to do is that you see that report width is grayed out. You're going to say height. It's going to be report height minus frame thickness. Okay, frame thickness. Unfortunately, you have to spell it out. Make sure that the spelling is correct, or else this will not work. Okay, same thing here. Panel width. You're going to say report width minus. I'm going to put in a bracket, right, because it's going to be frame thickness times 2, because you're going to have left and right. So this is how I would apply it. Now, if you want to know what formula, you can always Google it and kind of do it, but this is kind of like the how you do it for like certain conditions. So you want to make sure your panel and everything, and when you say okay, you notice that the panel is actually, yep, that's good. And the panel also, yeah, okay, that's good. So the other thing I forgot to mention is that you see there's a subcategory. Always put it at the right category. The reason why is that the more complicated your model is going to be, you want to turn off. You want to go right click or hide category. Okay? Because if you don't put it in, what it does is that it will basically take your model and just hide whatever. Okay, so always remember when you build certain things very complicated, put it in. If you want, you can add the family, just some material, frame material. Okay, the next thing you want to do is that you want to add in your, your swing line. I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to close out of this. Nah, this is a good example. So let's go edit that. Okay, floor plan. Now you notice that I have two different ones. So there are families. Okay, this family is actually a detail items. So it's just a detail lines and stuff like that. When you build like complicated family, it's always a good idea to kind of build your nested families. And that way, what ended up happening is that you're able to get more out of it, and you won't have a clutter of all this different parameters. So it's always a good idea, do nested if you have to do it, and just load it into here. And then what you do here is that you're going to go in, again, there's width, make it the same as your panel width. Okay. And the next thing you want to do is that the thickness, you see the thickness? I'll just say follow the door thickness. And the same thing here I forgot to mention is that door thickness. Just keep it the same. Just the reason why I would like to do this is because when you do the scheduling, this is what it's reporting. Okay, just keep in mind. You see, okay. What you're going to do here is that you're going to go align with this and align it to that. Okay, that looks like a door. And one parameter that usually miss is that if you select this and click on this, you notice that there is show instance it's cut. I always like to turn that on. If you turn it off, what happens is that if you're at level 2 and that door, let's say projecting down to level, let's say 1, what ends up happening is that you're going to see this. So what I like to do is that I like to say, show only if the instance is cut. And when you go there, let's load into the project 1. So let's assume that, okay, let's assume you have a door. Oh, actually, yeah, let's draw a wall. First, you're going to draw a curtain wall. Okay. And then you see that there's family 5. And you notice that there's an offset. So what I'm going to do is that the offset, just make it 0 for both. Okay. And now what you want to do with this is that since it's a curtain wall, I'm just going to embed it, make that 7 feet. Make that, let's say, 3'6". Now what you have is that when you load it in, put in. All right, that looks good. And when you go to level 2, you notice that there's a door. Let's assume that I want to go bottom. You range. Let's go down to level 1. Go down to level 1. When you hit apply, we'll score. Okay, assuming that you want to turn this off, I'll show you what this will do. So let's assume that this one, you just want to make it just temporarily. And load it back in. You notice that, yeah, okay. So this is the reason why. If you do not want to show that door swing at the bottom, I recommend that you go in here, click on this, not show. And when you load it into your family and say override it, there we go. We'll hide that. Okay. Those are basically how I'd approach the door if you're doing a curtain wall and how you fit that panel into this. All right, so since we have 10 minutes, I'm just going to go into how to like you build your adaptive component. So last time I did adaptive component a little bit. It's a little bit simpler kind of a thing. I only show you how to do rectangle, but there's other shape as well. So here, what you're going to do is that there is a pattern here, model pattern. Okay, last time I only show you this, but when you select this, rectangle, you can actually swap it with certain one. So let's say you want to do a zigzag. Okay. Again, I'm just going to take this. Let's assume that you want to build the frame and you want to build the box. So what I typically like to do is I like to do this. And let's assume that this is glass. So this is glass material. Yeah. Oops. I know I should be very good with spelling, sometimes you can slip up pretty fast. So in here, what you want to do is that you want to go 12.5, 12.5. Okay, just do center. Since this is center, I just like to do center positive, offset, negative, offset. Now, if you want to build a frame around that, what I like to do is that you like to create a profile. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Family. Just use the generic adaptive. So what you're going to do here is that you're going to add in a point. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind with adaptive components is that it's always set to share. Sometimes you don't want that. Okay. The reason why you do not want that is because when you create a bunch of patterns and have nested stuff, what it does is that share will not respect the cut. Yeah, in a couple projects, it just doesn't work in certain conditions where you want to cut certain things. Yeah, it will not respect that. So if you do not want that, then just turn it off by default. By default, it's always going to be set to share, but you kind of have to go in there and make sure you turn that off. Okay, here, I'm just going to, I'm just going to go in here. Edit witness line. Okay. So here I'm just going to go 100, 100. Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, there's the differences between the adaptive and the regular family is that the adaptive, when you select the subject, you select the whole thing, whereas the other one, if you're using the traditional family, each line is individual. So that's the unfortunate thing, is the inconsistency. So just keep in mind, once you have this, just lock it down. Same thing here. Lock it down. I'm just going to keep it simple. Just going to say that's W, and then that's L, a width and length. Now, the next thing you want to do is that you want to set this and make it adaptive. Okay, that's all you have to do is that you just have a line and just make it adaptive. And next, I'm going to do is that I'm going to load into my, I guess it's number 6. Yeah, let's go to number 6. Okay. Now, the next thing you do, you notice that, oh, it's able to snap onto that. So here, I'm just going to put it here. This is just a line. And what you can do is that you can select that object and say create. No, I just want that. Okay, there you go. Very simple stuff. This line will annoy you. So I always recommend that just turn it off and just call it, this is a 2D, outline guide or something. Okay. Now, if you want to change this parameter, then you go in here. Since this is not a shared, now what you can do now is that you can say, okay, this is L and this is my L, and then this is my Y. Okay. The minute you set to share, this thing just goes away, so you're not able to control it. Okay. Once you have this done, make sure you cut off the shared. Okay, not shared. Remember that. So here, I'm just going to go into my adaptive panel. Let's do a simple surface. Right. Last time I talked about how you create the surface. Now, if you do not know how to create it, it's pretty simple. All you have to do, I'm just going to start from scratch. Okay. Let's assume that this is a beautiful station that you want to build, but it's actually flat. So here, I'm just going to move my points around. Oops. I'm just going to move my points around. Sure, just move my points around. Move my points around. The unfortunate thing about Revit is that once you put it in, you cannot change, add points. I wish you could, hopefully in the future, but in this particular case, it doesn't like to do it. So here, I'm just going to go to 3D. Let's add one more points. Let's see, copy it. Okay, so let's assume that you have this. This could get very annoying, so I would recommend that you hide categories so that you don't select the wrong one. Select this, click on spline to point, click on spline to point, and click on spline to point. Okay, so you should see like this type of configuration. Set reference. Now what you can do here is that you can just automatically just readjust where you want it. What I typically recommend is that if you want to do your building, like a very organic shape, I recommend that you create like a guideline, a grid line or something, so that you have a reference where the grid is supposed to be. And then the points, you want to basically put it into those grid lines so that those are basically your points. Okay. Once you have it, if you are free form, you don't care about anything, then yeah, just put points anywhere and you can just go move your points up that way. Next thing you do is that you create form. Okay. Once you have this, now the next thing you want to do is that you want to click on this divide surface. Okay. Right now it says that there is no pattern. So what you have is that you notice that down here there's a zigzag. It shows you that's what it looks like. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load this. Oh, I'm just going to close out of that. Yeah, just load this into my family. Let's see, what family do I have? Yeah, I have to close it out. Sorry, just confusing me. Yeah, I'm just going to close all of it so that I don't get confused. Yeah, I wish Revit has a preview. Like, that's one of the things is that, you know, I wish there's a preview to know what family you loaded in. Because if you don't, it's kind of like, yeah, you're just picking and choosing. Oh, there we go, sample surface. All right, so the next thing you do is that you go in here. You notice that there's family 6, and then you just replace that. So it's very simple. Notice that right here, very simple surface. Now, if you want to change this, then you can say, okay, fixed number. Let's make it maximum spacing 2 meter. Okay. Now, this is where you can do experiment. Okay. Not everything you do or pattern that you built will work. Okay. I'll show you an example, like what I built, and then, you know, sometimes it will fail. So always test it before you load it in. It's kind of like, yeah, it's going to give you that. You notice that sometimes it will break at this really, really, you know, extreme conditions. So I always like to put in same thing, just 2 meters. Yeah, Revit is very finicky. It's not going to be like one size fit all. So you kind of have to make sure you build piece by piece. Okay, just build it. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you may not like it. So this is kind of like you go in there and then you just basically build whatever you think it's necessary for patterns. Normally, we don't do this extreme where you do all this very organic shape unless the client has money. But most of the time, you're going to do like vaulted ceiling or, you know, special patterns that you want to put in like different colors and stuff like that. Then this kind of makes sense. Okay, for the rest of the world, we don't really go crazy on, you know, all this Frank Gehry kind of a pattern. Yeah, you're gonna get this error message. This is the unfortunate thing about having Revit is that, you know, you see that, oh, it says that this pattern cannot work. Okay, it's kind of like you pick and choose your battle. Okay, sometimes you're gonna have this error message. Just keep in mind. Today I was kind of like building onto the 6 panel, right? When I load it in and change it, this type, you could go as crazy as you want. But the problem is that when I load it in and change the panel, this will automatically fail, okay? Because sometimes what happens is that the curve becomes too great and Revit would just fail. I'm just gonna just load it in just to show you what this will do. Oh, it's already in there, okay. I don't have to reload it. Okay, so here, let's keep this panel at 5 meter and 5 meter just for simplicity. Yeah, it's almost 2 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is after this demo, I'm just going to show you guys how to do a repeater. Okay, so here, go to 6 point. You will get this error message. So just try to keep it as simple as possible. Just don't go in to Revit full bang on thinking that, oh yeah, you can make this really crazy stuff. Because majority of the time you have to go in there and trial and error. It's always trial and error. That's the unfortunate thing about Revit, is that it's all trial and error at this point. You see that, yeah, it cannot do it. Okay, I tried so many times to try to look at it. What you have to do to keep in mind when you build something inside Revit, keep it as simple as possible. So here, what I did here is that I keep it like generic, very simple, load it in. And Revit seems to like simple stuff. Okay, don't blame the software. It is the limitation. Let's see, no curve. It's a limitation. It hasn't changed since 2010. Okay, you notice that right now, since you're adaptive, you're gonna see this line. Just be aware some of the limitation. All right, last thing I'm gonna talk about is the repeaters. What repeater does, it's pretty simple, is that you have a line. I'm just gonna go in here and just draw a bunch of lines. Okay. And I'm just gonna move the point up. Okay, just a bunch of points. Now, what repeater does, well, first I want to change this to reference. Okay, you notice that there is one called the divide path. Okay, this is used for repeaters. Okay, what it does is that it basically takes the family and it just divide it up. Now you kind of have to load it in a family. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a generic family, how to create a repeater. First you do a family. Let's make a generic adaptive. It could be any family. So I'm just going to close out of this. Oh, actually, let's use the toilet. Yeah, let's put in a toilet and make a repeater out of that. Okay, so let's say you have a toilet. You put a number 8. Okay, always keep in mind, traditional Revit family can go to adaptive, but not the other way. Okay, so here I'm just going to go in component, place it on work plane. Okay, next thing you want to do is you want to put in your insertion point and make that adaptive. Okay, so you have a toilet. And now what you can do is that you're just going to load in the sample surface. So what you're going to do is that you just place it anywhere here. Oh, actually, no. You have to make sure that you put it into one of those holes. So let me try it again. Component, yeah, hit on that one. Make sure it's on that point. Now what you have is that, where is that? You see that this will highlight, repeat. Okay, and right now you only got 6. Let's say I want to make it fixed distance. Let's make it a meter apart. All right, so you have a bunch of toilets. Kind of work with, yeah, you could go crazy with this. Right, so I'm just showing you that, yeah, you can use any Revit stuff and make a repeater out of that. So if you're doing like a cathedral or something and you want to make it a toilet, there we go. Any questions so far? No question. All right. Hopefully you learned something today. It's pretty simple. I try to keep the advanced stuff as simple as possible so that, you know, this is kind of like the day-to-day operation, how a majority of my work, how I would do it, right? It's trying to keep it simple. And then if you guys want to know how to swap certain things out, yeah, just refer back to this video. If you have any things that you want to add in or something like that, yeah, just let me know. Thank you.